afternoon, and good morning and good evening if you're joining us from overseas. My name is Ahmed el Gamal, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to another financial wellness webinar here at MetLife. This webinar has been one that we've been preparing for quite some time now. It's been a long time coming, and we're very excited to be here today to discuss some of the latest UAE customer market insights and have a very exciting panel of subject matter experts with me today, which I'd love to introduce you to. First off, we have Apostolos Ailamakis, who is head of bank insurance and DTC here at MetLife Gulf. Hello, Apostolos.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
We also have Iftikhar Shaikh, who is deputy head of face-to-face here at MetLife Gulf.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have Shahzad Doctor, who is our senior consultant for market research at Global Market Strategy and Science. Hi, Shahzad.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
Awesome. So these are some of my exciting colleagues that I really enjoy working with. We all participate in many sort of design thinking sessions and collaboration sessions to get to where we are today. And we're very excited to take you through some of our latest market trends and our customer insights. Before we begin, at the end of the session, we're going to be spending some time to go through a Q&A. So we'll dedicate the last 10 or 15 minutes for a Q&A session. If you're interested in participating or submitting any questions to any of our panelists, in GoToWebinar, the section is a drop-down that says questions. So feel free to type your questions there, and we'll be sure to look at the questions at the end of the session. Awesome. So let's begin. I think to start off, this question is for Shahzad, right? So looking at our market research, we saw that 52% of people in the UAE are financially optimistic. But at the same time, we saw that 39% of people in the UAE are financially stable, right? And there's obviously a bit of a discrepancy in that. Not really discrepancy, there's a difference or variance in that data. So what does that mean, and why do you believe there's a gap between stability and optimism for people in the UAE?
Right. Thanks, Ahmed. First, I think it's important to understand the two terms, which is financial stability and financial optimism. I think they are unique in their own definition. So stability is what we define as the current state of mind, how respondents, when they were responding, or now residents of the UAE, currently rate their financial health at that moment of time. So it's an in-moment kind of measure. And financial optimism is more a forward-looking or more a future-looking measure where customers or respondents in the UAE feel their financial health will be in 12 to 24 months' time. Now, because of this difference, it's also important to understand why the numbers are low, right? And that's because of what drives these two different variables. Financial stability or the current state of financial health is defined or is driven by customers who feel that they don't have the right amount of money at the moment to fulfill their financial needs or obligations that they might have to their family, customers who feel they don't have the right skills or the right education level to manage their funds correctly, whereas financial optimism is largely driven by external factors as well, and also by people who are slightly more, I would say, experienced or educated in managing their finances, in saving up for a better future. Now, we all have gone through a very interesting 2020, if I can say that, and that has caused that current state of mind to be at 39%. And to be honest, when we look at it in a global scheme of things, it is quite low because COVID really hit us hard. Majority of the people who are currently unemployed in the UAE claim that they are unemployed because they lost their jobs during COVID, which means that the number one reason keeping them up at mind is whether they'll be able to financially support their families. And that's why we see that number at 39%. However, when we ask them where they think their financial health or think their financial situation will be 12 to 24 months down the line, that's when they are a lot more positive and a lot more in a good frame of mind, saying that yes, in 12 months I will be in a better state, this situation will improve, and I will have the right tools to kind of continue or rebuild my life. And that's why we see that number slightly higher than the 39%. So that's the answer to your question.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, well, it's good to meet. It's good to see, and it's good to know that people here in the UAE are optimistic, and resilient no matter what. They still have that sort of positivity, and they are, they're looking forward to a better tomorrow, and that's great that the data tells us that. Moving on to the next data point, the next insight. This was going to be for Apostolos. So we've seen that based on our data, 84 people in the event of an income loss cannot maintain their standard of living for more than 2 months, right? That's that's kind of a big number, to be honest, looking at all the people that responded in our survey. So they don't have the savings beyond 2 months, and they're kind of living, spending what they have. So how does a finding like this help your distribution, and what does it mean for the bank assurance category? And I mean, where do we go from here to sort of improve on this? And just let us know your thoughts.
Thanks, Ahmed. Prior I respond, please try to mute because there is some echo sometimes. So I'm not sure if the audience can hear us properly. So I would say what comes as a surprise is how many people don't consider protecting their most important assets, themselves or their families. So it makes us all to wonder, is it actually a lack of awareness? The survey that we conducted and the results showed, I would say, low financial readiness towards what we call unforeseen events. Is it an alarming statistic? Probably yes, and actually proves that majority of us are not financially prepared for unexpected emergencies. Each and every one of us, depending of course on our life cycle, have specific financial goals that we want to fulfill. But in most cases, we don't have the financial backing in case of an unexpected event, loss of life, an accident, disability. So emergency money has been particularly necessary, especially in the area of COVID, I would say. And the general thumb of rule is to have a cash stash equal approximately to 6 months of expenses. So I would say that that element highlights the importance of proper financial planning, and definitely insurance can play a vital role as a strong financially safety net. A finding like this, as per your question, is very helpful for us as it only puts into perspective what we always knew, right? I mean, and we now have a stronger conviction to work hand in hand with our partners and approach our customers on the need to increase awareness on financial planning and protection. I would say for us, as MetLife, means more focus on our protection solutions. And this is why, the campaign that we're launching, as we call it, Life Comes First, is an important platform. It allows us to put into perspective and highlight what the customer priorities are and how we, as financial service professionals, have an obligation to help each and every customer achieve these objectives. So a concluding remark from my side, family financial preparedness is a must-win. And this is where our partnership with our partners, banks and distribution, but especially in the bank assurance category, comes in. As we say in MetLife, it's all about navigating life together. Thank you.
Thank you, Apostolos. Yes, I do agree. It is about navigating life together, and I think it'll take some time. I mean, today, customers only have 2 months of kind of savings to get them to 6 months and to get them to consider insurance solutions. That's where we as MetLife, working with our bank assurance partners, could help serve that, help fill that gap. Moving on to our next point. So this one is going to be for Iftikhar. So 40% of people in the UAE acknowledge that they need to do more to fulfill their future requirements in life. And that number is skewed really towards the younger people. So the people that are 38 or younger are kind of dominating that, that group, that they feel that they need to do more. I guess they've seen, they probably lived through one recession and a pandemic, and they're seeing a lot around them has been changing, and they see the need. So based on this, and based on what we saw in our market research, what are the trends that we see in the face-to-face category with the demand for protection solutions for these people? Is the market data aligned with the reality for each of agency as well as IFA?
Well, thanks, Ahmed. I think I would start by saying that I'm not really surprised to find this data point that a lot of younger generation people are actually wanting to do more than what they're actually doing. So I think that's a good news for all of us coming in and representing the financial planning industry all together. Zeroing down to what we are witnessing in our distribution specifically, I think I absolutely echo to this group of people where majority of the customers whom we have, or we have recently kind of onboarding them, are very, very aware, are very, very clear in terms of what are their priorities and what exactly are they wanting. I would say because of COVID, I think majority of them had this early enlightenment that what protection products can help them when it comes to family planning and protection for future goals. Let me elaborate my response by giving one more example for the benefit of everybody. UAE currently is a very, very unique market compared to other markets globally. And I'm specifically talking from an insurance point of view. Majority of the population, what we have over here are expatriates. So people like you and me come into this country in a period where we want to maximize and optimize the opportunities in this country, and at the same time, prepare for a better future and give a better standard of living to our families back home. These customers have various priorities, whether it comes from planning for the family's financial security, whether it comes from child education, or maybe even as far beyond as having a good retirement. So when these customers are faced with crises and scenarios, as we just discussed, the awareness and the trends are really encouraging. Majority of these customers are aware of our protection, and that's exactly what's got reflected in our research, what we did. I would just end my answer by giving one quote, which we generally discuss, that anybody who has an income where the family is dependent upon, he needs insurance. And this exactly now is getting acknowledged by the larger audience in the country.
Thank you so much for your insightful response, FC. I mean, yes, I do agree. Anyone with dependents, it becomes a responsibility for them to make sure that they have the right protection for their family and their loved ones. And needless to say, seeing that demand grow in that category, especially for younger people, is great for us to see and learn. Moving on to our next data point and insight. So this was going to be for Shahzad. Back to you. So 60% of respondents believe they are either not adequately insured or are unsure of whether their insurance would cover an eventuality, right? So they might have an insurance, but they're not really sure if it covers, and there's kind of like a lack of understanding, and maybe should I say a big segment of underinsurance. So the point about underinsurance appears a few times in our market research, in our white paper. Can you explain what it means to be underinsured, although owning a policy, and how does someone mitigate the situation?
Sure. I think underinsurance is a very important term in our business and in our industry, and it's something that we need to keep an eye out on. And I do believe underinsurance in our context is defined as in two parts. Let me explain. The first part is in simple terms is that if you have to go to a hospital, a clinic, or to a doctor, and you have to pay out of your own pocket, whether it's a simple copay or for a majority of the treatment, which is not claimed back from your insurance or is not covered by the insurance that you have, basically that's underinsurance. That's the first part where it affects the insured. The second part, which I personally believe is the bigger issue that we need to solve for, is exactly what Iftikhar just mentioned, is that if our dependents or people that rely on the insured's income that comes through, what about them? Now, we are very fortunate in the UAE as expats to have a medical insurance from our employer as a stated rule. However, this insurance is, while great, has an annual limit, as we all know, has different benefits and covers depending on the employer, depending on the insurance provider, and so on. So majority of the time when respondents actually undergo an eventuality that is more serious than a common cold, like a critical illness or a life-threatening incident or a disability, that could have an impact, a significant impact on the income coming into the company, into the household. That's where the big gap in the UAE is. And that's what respondents in our survey said. When they actually went through an eventuality, they realized that they had to shell out a lot more money from their savings, from their own bank, to cover the expenses, which meant that they did not have enough protection for their family to not only financially protect them, but to lead a normal life, to pay their house bills, to pay their rent, to pay their school fees, to live up to the standard of living that they have here. And I think as an insurance company, that's what we need to solve for. We need to solve for that gap between medical costs that are rising significantly in the UAE, and ensuring that our insured members have the satisfaction or the peace of mind. If something happens, they have enough to protect their family, or or at least their family is covered to continue living a normal life. And it's a big gap. It's 60% of our respondents, unfortunately, there is a false self of belief that the card in my pocket provided by my employer will cover for everything. And what we saw through the data is those people that have only that insurance, that gap widens. So yes, under insurance is a big gap in our market, and I believe that needs to be addressed at the earliest.
Thank you for your response to that. I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I think that the more people think of the medical insurance card as their only go-to, then you know, they we are falling in this underinsurance category. And the gap is, you know, the expenses that they pay every single day. You know, the life expenses continue, the rent, the mortgage, the fees, the schooling, and not only that, but there's also hidden costs that they don't consider. So, I mean, underinsurance is a challenge that we as financial service experts we need to work collaboratively to solve. So moving on to the next data point, and this one is back to you, Apostolos. Only 4% of income is dedicated to insurance products. So this is kind of like leading from the previous question Shahzad responded. Even as roughly 1/4 is attributed to other savings investments, including bank and savings accounts, investment savings, and remittance abroad. So we're seeing a very low sort of percentage of someone's income being dedicated to insurance products. From your point of view, what can the bank insurance category do to help improve that score? How can we sort of improve and scale it up?
I would say again, you know, the output of the survey is not a surprise to us. It's not a surprise to us. Our research in the UAE proved that protection is a neglected asset. We can say it's an underserved asset, right? So firstly, as a common rule of thumb, so we're sitting at the 4% as you described in the question. A common rule of thumb says that approximately 6 to 8% of our gross income, plus approximately 1% for each dependent, needs to be invested on insurance. Banks, we are all customers of a bank, have relationships with customers for many years. And actually, they have helped customers to reach their financial goals. How? With their core products and offerings. But a solid and secure financial plan, or securing a good, let's call it financial wellness, will be incomplete without the protection element. And that is exactly where bank assurance solutions step in to complement the bank customer experience. At MetLife, you know, as experts in protection, we have now the customer perspectives. We have the data. insights to drive insurance growth, because I would say we have identified the triggers. What are the priorities? For example, priorities for a customer: family protection, financial security. What are the barriers? Affordability, eligibility, the value of the purchase. So by addressing those points, we can start gradually seeing this 4% shifting to 6 and maybe even 7 or 8. So once again, a concluding remark, I would say improving financial wellness is a must-win. We at MetLife, hand in hand with our partners, we made it our aim to educate customers and the broader population about insurance opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Apostolos. Yes, I do see your point. I think having a solid financial wellness plan is important. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people lack that. I think there's no kind of book of life that we get handed by our relatives or forefathers, or kind of telling us what to do and what not to do. Sometimes people are figuring it out, and collectively, as an industry, educating customers through this journey to ensure that they have a solid plan could help us move from 4% to hopefully 6 or 7 or even 8%. That will be a dream one day. Moving on to our next point. This is going to be for Iftikhar once again. So looking at job security now, because I think job security is a topic that, due to the impact of COVID, I think it kind of alerted a lot of people. The vast majority of respondents are fairly concerned about job security, and that's like 77%. With 27% of them are fairly concerned, and 50% of them are extremely concerned. So all of a sudden, we're seeing a lot of people have this sense of maybe insecurity or of job security. What's going to happen next to their job if something were to happen? And job leads to income. Income leads to obviously their day-to-day expenses, and sort of living, making sure that they're making ends meet. So now that it's been a topic in a lot of people's awareness, and more so due to COVID-19, can you give us some insight on the importance of job security as well as the role that insurance can play in this situation?
Well, absolutely, Ahmed. In fact, the research report what says that people these days are really concerned about job security, and a lot of anxiety is there on the subject. I would say it is not new. Since the time I've been operating in this industry in the country, this has been the feedback, or this is the most common objection what we receive from our customers. But of late, it has definitely increased. Now, where it is coming from, I think we need to understand where this insecurity is originating from. And that brings me back to the same point which I was trying to tell earlier, is that this country is unique compared to any other global market. We all are expatriates over here, and we are dependent on having a sponsor in the form of our employer to be able to continue generating income and to be able to continue to stay in this country. So the job security here does not, I would say, become more important just because of loss of income, but it is also because of losing a resident status. And that plays on the mind of a customer, specifically the retail customers whom we are dealing with. And due to the after effects of COVID, we saw a lot of rationalization in the job market, and families just not suffering due to the health conditions, but also financially due to such instances happening more than often in the marketplace, have definitely increased this concern to be at the highest in the given situation. As insurance consultants or financial consultants, the way we address ourselves, it's our moral responsibility to make the customers understand and realize that job loss or job insecurity is momentary. People who are qualified, like every one of us, would definitely find some other occupation very soon. But what's important is that we keep our calm, we continue to focus on the things what we are supposed to do, and work on our strengths. And that's exactly what a financial planning advisor can instill confidence in the customers. The bigger worry probably comes out is the financial stability and security, and that's the role what a financial advisor plays. If we help our clients to have a plan for this contingent situations, then the problem is reduce to a certain extent where they do not need to worry about how are they going to take care of their temporary finances. So as I say, I'll again end my answer with a quote that job loss is temporary, but loss of life is permanent.
Thank you so much for your wise response. I like that quote at the end. Yeah, I think it's that maybe that sense of awareness that what would happen if somebody loses their job, that they don't realize that they won't be able to make ends meet, and it's important for them with the right financial service expert to take them through that that situation. So moving on to our next data points. This one is going to be for Shahzad. Back to you. So this is an interesting one, and I think this is you know, this is like an interesting debate that would come out of this point. So 77% of people in the UAE claim to be in good or very good health. All right, now when you get a data point like that, it's very reassuring. But then we also have another data point that says 77% of people in the UAE are concerned about getting diagnosed with a major illness. And it's the third most concern in our survey. So, and it's like third highest most concern in our survey. So, looking at this data, 77 is an interesting number. It appears twice around health. One being we're very happy with our health, and the other one, or confident in our health, and the other one, we're concerned that something might happen to us. So, your point of view is, are people in the UAE both healthy and concerned at the same time? Or are there other factors that they are considering to raise their concern?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting statistic that came out through the research, Ahmed, like you rightly said, and there are factors that are raising concern for customers. But before that, the first statistic that you mentioned, 77% respondents claim to be in good or very good health. That kind of reassures the fact that even though we are looking at statistics, there's a human side to it. And what I mean by that is that we as human beings don't necessarily think anything bad will happen to us, or we will go through something negative until it happens to us or our loved ones. And that's the response you see there. No matter how many times we do an insurance-based survey and we ask customers why are they not looking to buy additional insurance products or new insurance products, their first response is, I don't need it because I'm in good health. But we know for a fact from government published data, from even other studies done in the UAE around critical illness and those kind of diseases, that this is not true, because UAE unfortunately has the youngest age for people who have suffered a cardiovascular disease at the age of 45 on an average, whereas the global average is at 65. So there is an issue around health. But when we probe them through the survey, through a series of questions, yes, worrying about my health or my illness comes up as the most important. And COVID does play a role here. I think that number is beefed up because of COVID, and also it's the third concern, like you mentioned, because of COVID, as the number one reason for staying up at night, as customers stated, is job loss at the current point of time. But it's a very important concern that we need to address. People are worried about their health. At the same time, a similar proportion of people are underinsured. At the same time, the similar proportion, and I'm going back through your questions, are people that's saying that, look, I don't have the enough financial resources to sustain my life. I only 30%, if you remember, said that I have that. 70% said that if tomorrow I lose my income, that's it. I don't have the financial health and the financial resources to sustain my life. So tomorrow, if a major illness hits a bread earner in a particular family, and he is underinsured, as the data is currently suggesting, then he and his dependents will definitely struggle to make ends meet in this country. So while the first number, yes, interesting, I think that's a very stated and a very defense mechanism of customers. I don't need it, I'm in good health, accompanied by the false sense of satisfaction that I have an employer who's giving me a health insurance. But I think the major concern in this particular statistic that you've pulled out, Ahmed, is the second 77%, which we need to educate customers on, and why an insurance, or why our products of protection are important for them, not necessarily for them, but also for the dependents, to kind of ensure that peace of mind and they can sleep peacefully at night. So yeah, it was an interesting finding, and I think the second 77% is the more interesting number that we need to work towards.
Thank you so much, Shahzad. Yeah, I think something I've seen, at least working on insurance, is whenever you tell people, or people, speak to them about cancer or critical illness, they have this kind of, they don't want to talk about it sometimes. It's one of those things that they kind of feel they know about it. I'm sure they have people in their family or know of people that suffered from these illnesses, but it's one of those things that they avoid, or they kind of like, it's not going to happen to me, but I am concerned about the health at the same time. So it's such a interesting kind of mindset to be in, where from both sides, that you feel that you might get an illness, but you still don't want to talk about it or don't want to do anything about it. I just want to remind everyone, to put in their questions in the questions tab in GoToWebinar. We have 2 more questions to go, and then we'll be responding to your questions in the Q&A. The next question, or the next data point, I'll be directing it back to you, Apostolos. So this point is about education, and I think it's an important point we need to address. So 20% of respondents in our market research said that they do not want to buy insurance because they do not understand it. I know the screen is still taking its time to load for a few of you right now, but it'll come in a minute. It's being a bit slow, some technical issues right now.
I think we're okay, Ahmed, because I can see the slide.
Okay.
I can see the slide.
Great. So based on this data point, so what can the bank insurance category to help improve that score?
Yeah. Okay. I will start by saying clients, including, for example, myself, do trust their banks, to help them manage their wealth, or to help them plan for a stronger future. But definitely, that trust comes with an important responsibility to actually, help customers not only build their financial future, but to protect it as well. I think Saj earlier mentioned, the majority of the surveyed people in the UAE expressed financial optimism, or what I like to call the, optimism bias. But rightfully, as he said, they are concerned about their actual preparedness, right? So we do have a responsibility, along with our partners, to engage on educating customers who have knowledge gaps. There is a great potential overall, if we address this, for the insurance industry to grow, and definitely for the underinsured population to become optimally insured. I would say few steps we are undertaking to address this type of initiatives. We join hands with our partners on customer-focused marketing and awareness campaigns throughout the year. We do this type of thought leadership webinars, which are thematic most of the times, like the one we do today. The campaign that we're launching in the market, Life Comes First, and the thought leadership paper provides many valuable insights. We have some digital assets and tools that somebody can go by himself to assess what is his protection gap through a simplified calculator. I would say it's important also as an industry to bring real life examples to the customers, so that they can see beyond the concept that insurance is intangible, an intangible asset. Because the benefits are real, and the people that have had positive impacts are also real. And we have a great, real case study and examples and testimonials that we should continue sharing and exposing to the market. Our clients, end of the day, might ask, why do I need insurance? And I think Ifti made a comment. The simple answer is yes. If anyone relies, your parents or your family, on you financially today, you need to definitely consider protecting the future of the dependents. So my final concluding remark, improving, I would say, financial literacy will create better financial prospects for families. So along with our partners, we are investing heavily in education and awareness to help customers breach their protection coverage and ensure they are prepared for any life eventuality that the future might hold. Thanks, Ahmed.
Thank you, Apostolos. I think there's a certain theme here today. I mean, education really does come out a lot. I think education, the right education, will help under insurance, will help with the increasing the allocation of their income to insurance products. It'll help the bridge the gap as well. And I think what's more one of the interesting things that you said in your response was it is an intangible asset, right? So yes, the model of an insurance product could look complex, but I mean fundamentally it's an intangible asset that the beneficiary gets. And through the testimonials and the storytelling and everything we're doing here at MetLife, I think that does bring value to the customer as long as so they could see who actually gets the benefit at the end and how that helps their family. Thank you so much. We're moving on to our last question of our webinar, and then we're going to move into the Q&A. This next question is for you, Iftikhar, and this is an interesting one as well. So, in our market research, we found that only 45% of people in the UAE feel confident about their mental recovery should they have an unexpected life-changing incident. All right, that means 45% feel okay to recover, and you know on the other side, everybody else is not okay to recover. You know, like they don't have the capability. 55% are not ready, and they're not sure if they're about their mental and well-being if an incident were to happen to them. So, although it isn't the top concern, and it's been a topic of increased discussion over the recent period, as we see in our MetLife claims data as well. What are the factors that impact the customer's mental health, and how can insurance support here?
Well, Ahmed, I think this is a very, very important topic, what you are touching upon by asking a question on the mental health. I believe it is still a social stigma where people are not really happy and confident to discuss about one's mental health status publicly outside the close group. But yes, I feel the causes for a person to have issues on this side primarily revolves around two factors. One is the social stability what the person has, and second is the financial stability what the person has or has created for himself. Now, how insurance can help is more on the financial stability part. So the anxiety, the lack of preparedness to counter and manage any unprecedented or unplanned situations in life, which probably arises out of financial sector, or you know, instances which happen in and around the family, which is again revolving around the economic factors where a family is dependent upon, are the lead causes of having mental illness amongst the larger customer base. Secondly, of late, I'm also witnessing many customers are going through this phase because of high evolution of the digital world. And in this period, the human touch is getting somewhere missed. And that also leads for people to get depressed and then eventually develop illnesses on this side. The solution to this is communication. I think we need to communicate, whether it's socially or as an insurer on the financial side, to instill confidence, to make our clients be aware that insurance products is a vehicle for them to plan for such unforeseen circumstances arising out of changes in the economic situation. So I would say more than awareness and a continuous awareness and communication, as a responsible insurer, we could also look at simplifying our processes, creating dedicated help desk to expedite the living benefits what our policies end up paying to customers under this section of the society. So adding these initiatives and the overall awareness campaigns what we do would be a moral responsibility, giving it back to the society when it requires the most. I would end again by giving a quote that mental illness or mental health is not a destination, but it's a continuous process for us to improve on.
Thank you so much, Ifti, for your wisdom once again. I really like your quotes. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a stigma. I mean, mental health in this region is a stigma, and the irony of the more digital we get, the more dynamic we get, the further we get from connecting with other people, and it does raise the level of anxiety. But at the end of the day, of a product like insurance, one thing that insurance does, it provides peace of mind, right? So that peace of mind inherently is technically a solution. It's technically a benefit that we need to talk about more, because that is what customers will start looking at and understand that what's in it for them. So thank you, gentlemen, for your responses. We're going to move shortly to our Q&A session. But before we do, I just wanted to pause here for a minute and just let everybody know, a few times in this session, obviously we discussed our Life Comes First campaign, as well as our white paper. So on your screen shortly, I'm sure you're going to get it any second now, is the QR code that takes you to our Life Comes First portal, and where you could download the market research white paper, as well as the customer financial wellness ebook. So if you want to take a minute now, pull out your phones, scan the QR code. I think COVID-19 really saved QR codes. They're really back in fashion now. So scan the QR code, and you could get our latest market research white paper there. It is 3,000 words, but it's a very visual and a very easy read. So everything we discussed today in this session and a lot more insights are on this, are going to be in this white paper. So moving on to the Q&A session, with us on the line is one of my awesome colleagues, Ali Kailani, who is our head of comms. Yeah.
I was trying to test if the QR code works. It works. Yeah. Sorry, please.
Okay. It works. So on the line, we have Ali Kailani, who's our head of comms here at MetLife Gulf. Ali, do you have any Q&A questions for us and for the panelists?
Thank you, Ahmed. Yes, so we have a few that just came in. I'll start with the first one that I saw. So the person, the listener, is asking, I'm someone who has never bought any protection products, and just like you've mentioned, I don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to insurance. Where do you suggest I start, basically as a starting point? Maybe if would be best to answer this.
All right, Ali, thanks for the question, and thanks to the participant for asking this question. I think it's a very valid question in terms where we want to understand and what should be one's start point when one has to look and evaluate how much insurance and which insurance would one require. I think all of us in the industry have heard the rule of human life value, and I think that's the baseline where any starter who wants to adequately cover himself needs to apply those rules while determining what kind of and how much insurance he or she would require. Human life value is very simple to calculate. I think the way it does is that we need to calculate the current age of the customer versus the age where the client would retire, arrive at the difference of the number of years the client will continue to generate income for himself and his family, and just multiply those years with the person's current income, annual income. And that's the ballpark figure what a person would require to understand and determine how much insurance he requires. Second, in terms what is the best product, what he would require to cover himself, I think that's a difficult one to answer in a very short span of time, because that's what financial planning is all about, to determine which products would fit in depending on one's aspirations and goals he has in his life to achieve. But generally, various kind of products are there, and depending on the affordability and the aspirations what the customer has, these products could be fit in. But in terms of value of insurance, I think human life value is the basic method of calculating what should be the ideal minimum insurance amount one should have.
If I may add something here, from my perspective and personal experience, I feel, and many might have, witnessed that in 2020, due to the pandemic, I feel we witnessed a type of a COVID infused expansion of insurance, and especially I'm talking about life insurance. So even myself, even though I possess, from the past, some type of, critical illness policy, my group medical policy, part of, trying to manage some wealth accumulation for pension scheme, whatever is the case. Honestly, when I realized what's going on in the pandemic, and I was hearing that, people, had a very hard time or unfortunate output after being hospitalized, without going through, as Ifti described this process, definitely I knew I need to do something, because if something goes wrong unexpectedly, I try to put to bed my optimist bias that nothing will go wrong. So I bought life insurance, and I didn't expect, always I had the mindset, I have my group medical policy, I have a basic life cover in another policy, so I will be adequately, covered. And I realized that the gap was much bigger if something was going wrong about the future or unexpectedly wrong. So I think that, the mindset starts moving and shifting of the population, broader population, of, building more awareness about mental well-being, financial wellness, insurance being as a tool to facilitate and address this type of needs.
Great. Thank you, Apostolos, and thank you, FT. I have another question coming in from one of the listeners as well. This revolves around what we've been discussing, underinsurance. And it talks about, the listener is asking, do you think the complacency of some people that are underinsured is because they're provided insurance through their employer, for example, through the employee benefits? Do you think the employee benefits insurance plays a role in the person being complacent and not seeking out other forms of insurance? I would refer to Shahzad, maybe, if he could provide us with an answer, and maybe also Apostolos.
Sure. I think the simply put, the answer is yes, because looking at the data itself, we see that those people who rely only on their employee benefit insurance or their medical insurance provided by their employer, the gap of underinsurance is much higher than the 60% that we discussed. So yes, the reliance and the optimism of nothing will happen to me because I have that card in my pocket does impact the volume of underinsurance. And that's something that we've been discussing through this call that needs to be addressed. That gap has to come down, because there are many circumstances, and customers say it in the data, that when they went through that eventuality, they didn't have the insurance. They had to pay a significant amount of money to solve that eventuality. Let alone how it impacted their dependents. Only from the insurer's perspective, yes, it does play a big role in widening that gap, if at all. Yeah.
I think I'll just jump in here really quickly. I think when they're looking at underinsurance, it's not just the money or the finances that they get to cover their medical eventuality, but it's also all the other hidden costs that come along with being unable to work, or being out of being hospitalized for a while, or trying to sort of attend to your day-to-day. The one thing that someone doesn't want to do is worry about their income when they are diagnosed with a critical illness. They should be focusing on their recovery. But while doing so, they still have their rent, they still have their expenses, they still have their family school fees, their day-to-day costs that don't actually stop. So, underinsurance, the fact that it's one of those things that people don't want to think about and talk about. It's a reality, right? Because we're so used to, and it's a blessing that we, a lot of other countries don't have it, but that we have a group medical card that we all get. But sometimes you don't have decent coverage limits, and that card does not cover all the other hidden costs that I just spoke about.
Yeah, I think overall I agree, guys. I think the living benefit, as Ahmed described it, as, some expenses will be provided to deal with a specific treatment, but at the same time, you need another vertical that is trying to address the living benefit component, because life goes on and the expenses are keep on piling up. So yes, and it goes back to awareness. So this type of education, it's an important net, your group policy, and then you need to identify what's the additional gap that you need to fulfill, you as an individual, to take it on you and start building up for life. Because tomorrow you might not be in an employer A, you might be in an employer B, but your individual policy will follow you for life if you want to. And the sooner, probably less costly it comes, especially when it's a life insurance, and more healthy you are.
Thank you, Apostolos. I think we have time for another question or two. There's one that's basically that revolves around the trust. The listener says, many of the customers, have issues in believing that they'll get the right claim when they file for it, and that obviously stems from consumer trust in insurance as a whole. How do you educate people and how do you build confidence in the insurance industry overall? I think we've been talking a little bit about what we're doing for that and building insurance awareness. But if you can just touch upon that a little bit, Ahmed or Apostolos, actually.
I can provide 2 points. Ahmed might add on this. From my perspective, I think the last question that was addressed to me, I mentioned about the real life examples and real life testimonials that there are customers that they are leveraging the benefit of the insurance policy when it's needed. I think if we look from a claims lens, if I'm not wrong by heart, the last 3 years, 18, 19, 2020, we as MetLife paid approximately, and forgive me if I'm wrong, we'll check exactly the number, 830 plus, I think, million dollars in claims. So, and we saw also that, the critical illness claim, the majority, 50% was cancer, 35% was heart. So it's a reality, it's important, I think, part of the education that the customer who is buying a policy to understand the reason of purchase of that policy and what exactly risks, potential upcoming risks this policy is addressing. So, to have a smooth process during the claims. But, things, payouts are happening for real. I think every minute, or I don't know the statistics we had in the past, that every minute we pay X number of hundreds of claims. So it is there. There is no reason for somebody to avoid paying an eligible and reliable, claim request to an end customer, because this is the purpose that we are in the industry. It's a noble profession, I could say, in a way, the protection component that we're trying to address. Ahmed.
Yeah, thank you, Apostolos. I think with trust, trust and relationship, the relationship a insurance provider has with a customer, they kind of really go hand in hand. So the more transparent an insurance provider is, the more reliable they feel to the customer. And kind of looking into their claims data. And we publish our claims report as MetLife every year around this time. Our 2021 report will be coming out very soon. And yeah, we paid a lot of claims in the last 3 years, over 830 million. In claims over 3 years, but sometimes it's about the claims number, but sometimes it's about what's extra, right? So here at MetLife, it's and I'm going to put on my marketing hat on. It's we go out of our way to pay what we say, right? So yes, we do pay our claims, but how we pay, how do we make sure we pay it? It's our commitment to our customers, and that's kind of our ethos, right? When it comes to paying claims, is that we're actually in the business of paying claims, and this is kind of what we are as an insurance provider, and building that trust with the customer really helps kind of get us closer together from a relationship perspective.
Do we have time for one more?
I think we're at time. I think we're like a minute or 2 minutes away, and we're gonna start jumping off. Thank you so much, Ali, for emceeing the Q&A section. I think this wasn't. I think we have a few more questions, but I think we'll have to save it for another session. I really want to thank everybody for tuning in. All 240 of you that tuned into this live financial wellness speaker series webinar discussing our Life Comes First white paper. I really also want to thank my awesome panelists, Apostolos, Iftikhar, Shahzad. You guys have been great. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And we will be recording. This is a recorded session, so we'll be, putting it on our digital channels in the next week or so. But yeah, thank you once again, and we look forward to you joining us in another Financial Wellness Speaker Series webinar very soon. Have an awesome rest of the week, and take care.